Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Evolving with Soul. I'm Josette Diaz. I'm your host, and I am a self-aware awareness coach. I'm not self-aware. I'm a self-awareness coach for women in midlife. And I have two beautiful guests with me today, Jennifer Regular and Vasi Huntalis. And we are going to start off a little bit different today because today we're going to be discussing some very interesting topics that I know most of you can struggle with, just like everyone struggles with this. We struggle with different aspects of our ego, our self expression, and our identities. And so I'd like to kind of talk about that for just a brief moment before Jennifer and Vasi come in and let you know a couple of things about them. Because when we are living every day, we struggle with these things without knowing it. They sit in the background, and there's such a habit and a way of being for us that we don't recognize that they're causing havoc or intertwining in our life. And then we wonder why quite often. So I'd like to start off with Jennifer. What do you know to be true?
What do I know? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I think we're continuously evolving all the time. And what's true one moment may not be so true the next moment. What I believe to be true is that we are always evolving, discovering new parts of ourselves, new ways of expressing ourselves. I know that I'm here on a mission to guide the destiny of souls into their most empowered way of being. And that's meeting them where they're at whatever stage they're at, and what level of self expression is available to them at that point. And being able to light the path that where they get to share their highest contribution and become who they came here to be through that, and be able to support others in the best possible way as well, to really transform, which means transcending any forms our lives and ways of being had taken before, so that we can elevate all of humanity and become a species that actually united and co-creating global harmony. And so what I know to be true is that we're divine spiritual beings first and foremost, and the different shapes that takes in this human experiences is continuously evolving.
Mm, that is so much. It's so much in one. I mean, what you've said are so many truths. Those are so many truths in my mind.
Mm.
And I love that you talk about, that intertwining of what we've known and who we are, because I believe, the versions of ourselves as we shift our identity changes, and that leaves a lot to unravel in certain ways.
Mm.
And so thank you for bringing all of that up and speaking to it, and really speaking about the larger picture of the collective.
Mm.
And
Thank
Vasi, I'd
Hmm.
like to know, what do you know to be true?
Well, first of all, so, excuse me, beautiful and powerful, Jennifer. I just could feel my heart just expanding.
you.
And what I know to be true is that each of us are on a journey, and that looks different for each one of us. And so it's important to, I mentioned my heart, but I'm so aware of it right now. It's important is to find what's at the heart of our message, what's at the heart of our mission here. And each one of us is here to create something that only we can create, to make the impact that only we can create. And I
Mm,
know that what's true is that it's not always easy. I
mm,
get that. I've experienced that. And I know for each one of us, that is also true, is that it's not a straightforward path. It might go a little bit this way and a little bit this way, a little bit this way. And the part that gets tricky is when the ego or our identities come in. So I also know that we can be tricked. We can be
mhm,
pulled into a drama. We can be broken open, by something that
Yeah.
happens to us. And that the truth isn't there in the ego. The truth isn't there in our identity. And
Mhm.
so the truth is in our heart. That's what
Mhm.
I know to be true. And the truth is also in our joy as well.
Mhm.
So what gives us joy?
Yeah.
And so that's an important piece because the ego likes to say, "Oh no, you don't deserve that," or tell us these stories.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Josette, you use the word struggle and creating havoc,
Mhm.
and that is completely the role of the ego. And
Right.
so I'm loving that we're in this conversation today because it gives us a chance to shine the light, right, on where the
Yes.
ego shows up and what to do about it, and then also to recognize the light that we are. And I know
Mm.
that to be true. Each one of us is a master creator and is a light in the world.
Yes. I love
Mhm.
that. When I listen to both of you speak, Vasi, I really appreciate you bringing heart into it in the way that you did, and to speak of ego in this way. And the thing that I hear from both of you, that it reminds me of something that um, Michael Beckwith speaks of often. His podcast is Take Back Your Mind. And behind all of that is the simple truth is, in my mind, is that we have learned to allow our mind to carry us through this experience in our lives. We go from one thing to the next thing based on what we think and what our mind repeats to us. Yet, really, we are meant to be the captain of our own ship and the captain of our own mind. And rather than allowing all of those thoughts coming in to navigate us, we are to navigate us.
Mm.
And so learning to bring our thoughts into a higher realm by experiencing a more elevated state within us, such as joy. You mentioned joy is like one of the higher states. And through that, we're able to start to become the captain of our own ship. And that's something that I'd love to kind of like table a little bit. What do you guys think about that?
Sure, let's do it.
Yeah, yeah, dive in.
I'm in for it. Yeah.
So, what do you think of the concepts of shifting the way that we perceive the mind as being our leader of how we make decisions, and because that it means that we're listening to all those little uh, tidbits of, well, it's not tidbits, the replays of the tapes that sabotage us, that bring us, and which lead us to making decisions that can be in haste.
Mhm.
I always say desperation is never a place to make a decision.
Right.
Yeah.
Good
and
one.
and so, what do you think of that, Jennifer? I want to start with you, or both of you jump in. This is no order, but I'm going to start with you because I got to start somewhere.
Okay. We do need to start somewhere. And our mind tells us that, right? That we need to
Right.
do something.
See,
We need to
there
do
it is.
something. Yeah. But when you said that, how our mind tends to lead us, what came to mind is that sounds very top heavy. It sounds
Mm.
very top heavy. And
Mhm.
when something's top heavy, it's not really strongly rooted and grounded.
Yeah.
And so we kind of tumble and we're just kind of swaying and moving, in a direction that we not
Yeah.
necessarily want to go. And so instead of listening to those voices in the head, or not just ignoring them completely either, I don't mean that,
Mhm.
but actually listening to the voices in our heart. And I hear a lot of times when people are doing meditation and so on that they're trying to bring their mind into the heart, right? And to
Mhm.
bring that down and to try to ground yourself. And for me, it's actually been the opposite.
Mm.
Let's draw our
Yeah.
attention into our heart and let the voices of our heart, let the energy of our heart, let that expansiveness and that light that's emanating from our heart move up into our mind and inform our mind of what's
Yeah.
available to us,
Yes.
and to feel safe in that. Because our head never, rarely, I found, has never helped us feel safe.
Mm,
You know, we need to feel that in here, in our heart, in our soul, in our knowing, in our innate wisdom, that we are safe
yeah.
and protected. And when
Mm,
we're in our head, it creates confusion and chaos, and there's thoughts that can lead us astray
right.
when they're misaligned with the heart's energy.
Mm,
And so that's what I think of when you think of the head. I think it's very top heavy and can throw us off balance. It can feel like we're not in our heart, because we're not.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you're disengaged from your body in a way,
Yes, absolutely.
right?
Yeah, body and mind are not united in that
Yeah.
space. And mhm.
Vasi, what are your thoughts?
Our heart, totally agree with Jennifer. That part about being in our heart is so important. And, when you say captain of the mind, it's
Mm,
like, what part of the mind are we using? I think it's important to bring an awareness in, because are we in the part of our mind that's very analytical and logical and based on the past, or are we in the part of our mind that's the expansive connection to, the genius, the intelligence that's in the
yeah.
universe? Because our
Yeah.
mind can be used for both those things. Our mind can be used to take us into a very dark place, a place where we're trapped, or our mind can be also used to expand us into freedom and creativity and
Right.
innovation. And so that's part of it, is being aware of, what are we in the left brain? Are we in the right brain? Are we in the subconscious? Are we in the conscious? Those different elements of the mind. And then, yes, the heart, connecting into the
Mhm.
heart and allowing that to be, the image I'm getting is like the engine that moves us forward, going to our heart and asking, what is that about this situation that I'm feeling guided, that I'm
Mhm.
feeling a power, that I'm feeling a wisdom around, a
Yeah.
knowing. That's important, because the mind's going to try to talk us out of it in most cases.
Yes.
And so the heart will be like, honoring that, trusting it, getting to know what the nuances of the heart is, how that feels.
Yeah.
And then one of the questions I often ask in my work with clients is, can you feel your feet right now? So I feel if someone is very much in their head, can you feel your feet right now? And they'll be like, no, I didn't until you asked me that question. And what it does is it creates an alignment, right?
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
Mm.
okay, now your mind
Good.
is aware, ooh, I'm not really in my body. And
Yeah.
then you're feeling that in your feet, and then your heart comes on board. Your heart's like the bridge between the mind and the body, and helping to
Right.
integrate that wholeness that we are. And so that's the other thing, is that our mind doesn't have that access to our wholeness.
Mhm.
And we can get there when we bring in the heart and then the body as well. And then it's like, choo, everything kind of lines
Yeah.
up, starts
Right.
working together like a team, like a crew on a boat,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It all comes online.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
love that because, like, when I hear you talk about that, Jennifer, it started with what you were saying. I think of the heart chakra. The heart chakra is the only chakra connected to the lower and the higher chakras.
Mhm.
And so it brings everything into alignment. And then I think about, like, it reminds me of being in your heart center, then gives that message to what is considered your first brain, your stomach, and that can bring that information up into your brain. So it then, allows you to have this a more centered, like you're both talking about being centered and aligned. It allows you to have this more centered space within yourself to really we think of ourselves so differently. We don't think of ourselves as like coming from our heart, informing ourselves holistically. you
Mhm.
know we
Mhm.
don't really think of it like that. And if we considered our heart center to be the actual place to conceive, to create, to inform, you use the word inform, Jennifer, I love that word, informing us what that really bring about in our identities that we develop in ourselves. So let's move into identity. What do you guys think of, like, where identity gets developed and how that it's kind of the word that's coming to me is to use the word mutate, mutate into who we are. It feels really weird, but at the same time, no buts about it. At the same time, that can be really what it feels like. You know, when we are shifting in our identities, it really does feel like a mutation. That's not a comfortable space. And so most people kind of stay away from it, which is then really when our mind and ego comes in to play havoc, right? Because we're shifting. So what do you guys think about, like, integrating identity and how that rolls in and where that comes from? Vasi, I'm going to start with you.
Okay. I'm going to say something a little radical about identities.
Love it.
I don't believe in identities.
Okay.
And I don't believe in them because I don't believe that's who we truly are.
Mm.
And an identity is a program. It's a program that's running that of how we think we should be, what we think we should do, what we think we shouldn't do. And so an identity is too much of a construct for who we really are.
Mhm.
And that's why I don't believe in them, because I believe they limit us.
Yeah.
And they lead to conformity oftentimes. Now,
Mhm.
we could say, well, what about a positive identity, right?
Mhm.
And yet there's something about that that makes me want to deconstruct that as well.
You're just radical all over the place, Vasi.
Yeah. So what I want to offer to this conversation is to bring an awareness of what identities or
Mhm.
roles that you're playing in your life.
Mhm.
And are they serving you?
Yeah.
Are they serving your purpose? Are they serving your joy, right? Or are they getting in the way of that? And I think that's a good sort of litmus test to say, is this an identity that I want to keep with me? Is this an identity I want to claim? Because the more we can become aware of it, the more we can either let go of it, release it, or we can
Mhm.
embrace it and expand with beyond that identity.
Right.
So that it's no longer something that is a construct for it. It's more of an expression of us.
Yeah. It's like, do I agree to play this part?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Is that who I want to be?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because just as an example, one of the identities that I've held on to
Mhm.
for a long time is responsible. And you
Mhm.
can add that to anything, a
Right.
responsible business owner, a responsible daughter, a responsible, whatever,
Yeah.
responsible friend, whatever that is. And then
Mhm.
it's like, oh, that's the identity. Well, what does that mean I should do or shouldn't do? And then along with that might come expectations and obligations
Yeah, there's a whole set of rules.
and roles, like you said.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's interesting. That's an interesting thing to kind of jump off of. Jennifer, dive into that.
Okay. Yeah, I totally agree with Vasi about that, in conforming and performing. That's where we come
Yeah.
from with identity. And identity, we can think of it as a personality. We can think of it as a role. We can think of it as a character, where it's all
Mhm.
scripted and take on a certain
Yeah.
identity. Like, they're all representations of certain aspects of ourselves, right? And so I also think of cultural identity and gender identity. And
Mhm.
I think it's okay to find those representations of different
Mhm.
aspects and see how they express themselves as part of who we are. I think the danger of being attached to an identity can limit us and constrain us to certain ways of being
Yeah.
in conforming and performing in that way, right? And have this whole set of rules of what that identity looks like. It's like stereotyping,
Yes. Yeah.
and those kind of things come up where we actually become oppressed by that identity if we identify ourselves in that way.
Mhm.
Like an alcoholic saying that they're alcoholic instead of suffering from alcoholism, or someone with,
Yeah.
when I worked in mental health, we'd cringe when someone would call someone a schizophrenic, right? No, they have
Mhm.
schizophrenia. That's not their identity,
Yeah.
right? And still
Mhm.
we put that identity on the person. That becomes who they are,
Mm.
and we are also like a daughter. I'm no
Mm.
longer a daughter because my parents are deceased. So that's still a piece of me, but it's a
Yeah.
piece that I no longer attach to because it's not associated with anything anymore, right?
Yes, right.
And there's things that are really heartwarming. Like I've been in touch with family a lot. It's Family Day weekend that just passed here in Canada,
Mhm.
and I love seeing messages from nieces and nephews calling me Auntie Jenny. And I'm like, I was reflecting on that yesterday because I knew this conversation was coming up. I'm like, I love being an auntie. I love
Mm.
that. That's part of who I am. I also used to be a counselor, and I'm not a counselor anymore,
Mm.
but I was attached to that for a really long time. And being attached to that identity kept me from actually getting help myself when I was really struggling, because I was always the go-to person, the one that everybody else came to talk to. And
Yeah.
I didn't have that person that I felt I could talk to because I should know better and I have all the answers, and ego gets into it, right? And that we need to then be able to uphold that
Mm.
kind of role or identity.
Mhm.
And again, that's very limiting and constricting and restricts the way that we can grow and evolve into a fuller expression of who we are
Yes.
and who we came here to be.
I think that's so great. I love that you've brought in, like, these elements of expressing yourself and how we express ourselves, and I was sitting here listening to both of you and thinking about my recent experience of, downsizing my home and no longer having the quote unquote family home that I had for years, being the matriarch of the family, holding the space for when everyone showed up. And that was different this year. And it was a very, for those who go through this, in these different stages, whenever we go through a shift in the part we're playing that we call identity, it is a process of letting go.
Mhm.
And letting go of those pieces can feel difficult and challenging, especially when we have um, put so much emphasis on that identity as being who we are. And releasing the mind from that concept feels challenging. And if we can think of it as the way that we're speaking of it, in the sense of it's not really, Jennifer, you so eloquently, brought to the table the ways of how you no longer are XYZ and what that can mean. And then, you know, truly allowing us to move into the piece of how do we express ourselves now? And so that expression piece becomes the end goal, right? In a sense. Is that right? I think so. As you go through the process of letting go, you're going to make some decisions around how you allow you not allow, but, well, so that's kind of like the way the mind works, right? We're always trying to put it into a box. I mean, I'm just sort of like speaking, and yet there it is. It's laying out the path of how we really, consider when we're making changes and shifting. We're trying to decide, or we're looking at deciding how else we can be and what does that expression evolve as. And I'd love to hear from both of you what you think about how self-expression evolves into the part we play and how we interact. So, Jennifer, do you want to kind of continue with that a little bit and sort of, let us take us down another path with the expression piece and what that translates into?
Yeah. Well, self-expression's a tricky term because
Mhm.
self in itself
Mhm.
also kind of lends towards ego and identity again, right? And it could be our small self that it aligns with, it could be our higher self that it aligns with.
Mhm.
And it's recognizing that, having awareness of that when we're moving in the world and we're interacting with people and our activities and ways of living, where is that coming from? Is it coming from the small stuff, that self, or is it coming from our higher self? Is it coming in new aspects of who we are? Where is that being expressed? But when I had just left my marriage, I remember lying in bed and just staring up at the ceiling and feeling completely depleted. Everything was gone: the husband, the dream, the home, the pets. I had to declare bankruptcy at that time. There was My vision was gone. Like, I couldn't see any future in my life. I just didn't have it in me, so it felt
Mm-hmm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, I jolted up in my bed. I don't know what burst of energy had come through. We can call it like this wake up call. It's like this
Yeah.
adrenaline rush that came through. And it was actually about around the word passion. And passion's not just this energy. I came to understand it more as a calling.
Mm.
And what came to me was this realization that when you break up the word passion, it's pass I on. And that I is your soul's expression of what you're here to pass on in this lifetime. That I, self, is the higher self and your lower self. It's all
Yeah.
parts of you. It's not fragmented. It's bringing your full self and being able to pass that on in full alignment, in your authenticity, in integrity, because you have it all together, right? Mind, body, spirit, emotions together, and working in harmony to have this experience we came here to have on this earth. And so that I that we're here to pass on is our essence. And it's an
Mm-hmm.
energy that flows through every interaction we have, any business venture we go through, as we're a student and learning in school or,
Mm-hmm.
life school. We're bringing all of that in and learning how to have that flow through us, have
Yeah.
that flow through us. And so that's self expression to me, is how we're allowing that energy, that essence, that spirit to be free to direct the life that we're here and
Mm-hmm.
meant to live.
I love that. I love that you talk about the higher self and the small self, and that goes right into you, Vasi, because I know that you have some things to say.
Yeah, wow. So powerful and so
Mhm.
much truth in what you just said, Jennifer. Yes. What I would add to that is what gets in the way of
Mm.
our expression of our big self, of our higher self, of our true self,
Yeah.
because the ego is like that false self, right? The small part of us. And what gets in the way of that expression is everything we've talked to up until this point, right?
Mhm.
The ego, the identity, those can get in the way. Being in our head, not in the wholeness of our heart and our body.
Yeah.
And the other thing about expression is that it changes in our lives. So as we go through the different cycles of our life, the different seasons of our life, our expressions may change.
Yeah.
May find that our passions, which I love what Jennifer said, how she heard really the deeper meaning of passion,
Mhm.
is can change. And so part of it is to be open to how our expression of our higher self, of our true self, may come through differently. So I noticed that when I was younger, it was expressed through relationships, for example.
Yeah.
That's that's how I showed up. That's what gave me joy. And then in a different cycle of my life, when I was more maybe introspective and going through some difficult times,
Mhm.
and we all do this, then it became okay. Then there was meditation, then it was journaling, then my expression of my higher self came through in those ways. And then, now it's through speaking, it's through
Mm.
coaching, it's through mentoring. It's like that's the expression of my higher self. And so what comes up for me and comes up for many of us, especially women, is that fear of visibility in our expression. And I
Mm.
just wanted to speak to
Yeah.
that because we hear so much about being on social media or being out, with our publicity or promoting or marketing,
Yes.
that it's about, being vulnerable, putting yourself out there. And, I reframe that as, are you being authentic?
Yes.
Because that's your true expression. We can feel when someone's being authentic,
Mhm.
and whatever that looks like, whatever authenticity looks like. And so to me, that's, there's a lot of talk about what's your superpower, right? We've heard that for years. What's your
Yeah.
superpower?
It's your
You
genius.
know? And I
Yeah.
love that Jennifer used the word essence, because
Right.
really our superpower is our essence,
Mhm.
Mm,
is our
mhm,
authenticity. And when we express from that part of ourselves, and we're also not attached to how our ego or identity might have expressed that essence
mhm,
in the past,
Mhm.
then we come to this point where we're just in our joy, in our passion,
Yeah.
you
mhm,
know. And so to me, that's the challenge of expression throughout our lives, but it's
Mhm.
also the opportunity of how we can show up as the light that each one of us are, because we
Yeah.
are. We're all, each
mm.
one of us is a light. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love what both of you have brought to the table today, because I think that this is the way that I see it is the path to achieving the things that we've been talking about is one of the ways, not the only, one of the ways is through creativity. That
Mhm.
creativity opens that doorway for you to have that different conversation, for you to really start to understand what's in your heart and to sit in that space so that you can have these different ways of expressing yourself, noticing when your ego shows up and is wanting to keep you in the smaller self. So that connection to your heart allows you to rise to the occasion, to connect in with your higher self through creativity. It's just one way. It's one way, not the only. My favorite. It's my favorite way.
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
So, is there anything that both of you would like to offer the audience? I'll put your links in the notes, of course. What is there anything on the table for you that you would like the audience to know? Would you like me to pick? Vasi, go first.
What I would like the audience to know and to remember is who you truly are. And to be able to do that is to embrace and allow your essence
Mm,
to come through. That's our truest expression. That's, no matter what your purpose is, that's ultimately each and one of our purpose here on earth, is to
yeah.
be that light what we are, to be the essence that we are, and to allow that to come through. Creativity is also one of my favorite ways. I would encourage everyone to try that, even if you think you're not creative, especially if you think you're not creative. That's where the breakthrough's going to
That's
be,
right.
right? Because that's an identity you're
Yeah.
holding. So, so you are a master creator. That's what I want
Mm,
everyone to allow into their heart, to feel that alignment, body, mind, heart, body, that you are a master creator and you came here to be that amazing being that you've always been. Yeah.
mm.
And to create from that space, create your life from that space and that energy.
I love that. Thank you, Vasi.
Mhm.
It's so expansive. Jennifer, how about yourself?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about how great a self awareness exercise that is, to see when we're in a place of creating and when we're in a place of controlling.
Mm,
Because that's a sure tell sign of when we're expressing our higher self and when we're not, right?
yeah.
And being able to control indicates attachment and protection,
Mhm.
and ego comes in the way. And when we're creating, then we're in a real place of empowerment. We're becoming a fuller expression of who we are and being in integrity with that. I love that the work that I've come to do is bringing people together into the Leadership Ascension Alliance, where we
Mm,
talk about sacred leadership and sacred responsibility and understanding, our key traits and some of those challenges we have, but really identifying our leadership impact,
yeah.
understanding what that I is, and then coming into alignment with that. And one thing I want everyone listening to know, and that I remind myself of too, is that it isn't always a smooth transition to switch roles or to switch
Mhm.
identities or to become someone different or to try out a different aspect of who you're
Right.
discovering about yourself. I remember so many different times in my life where I would call it an identity crisis,
Mm.
where I didn't know who I was or what I was
Mhm.
doing or what was I was meant to do, and feeling like I should be doing the kind of job that was expected of me or that I went to
Right.
school for, or that, some other kind of
Mhm.
expectation or obligation that came on, and then having guilt if I didn't fulfill that, or fear of how to keep up with that, or trying something new. It could feel very numb. It could be very disturbing and
Yeah,
alarming. And it reminds me of a quote from the universe, though, that says, I had to make you uncomfortable or you wouldn't move.
that's right.
Yeah.
And we want to keep doing that. We want to keep
Yeah.
moving forward and evolving with
Yes.
soul. And an acronym for soul is sending out universal love. So if you're
Mhm.
unsure of what your identity is or what you're supposed to be doing, send out universal love.
Mm.
Be love, emanate love, keep bringing in that love, and that will give you the energy and the passion to create the kind of impact and make a
Mhm.
difference that you want to
Mm.
leave this earth with.
Oh, ladies, this just feels so yummy. I don't want to go, but it's time.
Mhm, mhm. Wonderful conversation.
Yeah, really
Yeah.
wonderful. And I know, Vasi, you offer people a session with you. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. It's how it's to
yeah,
get clarity on their next level of impact.
yes. And
And
then Jennifer has a beautiful membership for leaders called the Leadership Ascension
Alliance. Yeah, the
Alliance.
Leadership
Excuse me, I'm
Ascension
sorry.
Alliance.
Okay, Ascension Alliance.
Yeah. Hmm.
I'm sorry, I'm always really bad with that. I can't even remember my own stuff. Um, and then I have the Art of Awareness, and we have an art circle coming up this month. We're working on heart congruency and where are you incongruent in your heart.
Mhm.
So if you're interested in that, next week is the circle. So I will be putting each of your links below. And I just really love this conversation. And Jennifer, come back anytime. And
Okay.
Vasi is my pal. We're going to be here next
Yay.
week. So is there anything else you wanted to say,
Awesome.
Vasi?
just to thank you again for this opportunity to be in conversation. And Jennifer, I just loved how we just really expanded this topic and so
Yeah.
many beautiful truths. And the only thing I would say is, gosh, go forth and be the light that you are, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Let the force be with you.
Hmm.
Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us and come back next week.